when we looked at one particular customer, and we did all the kinds of data that we're looking at right now, off of nothing else other than really the call detail records and the billing extracts, right? We determined a lot of neat things. And these are things, again, that I would hope you would consider taking back to your company and trying and experimenting with on your own. We found out that social graphs really, really matter. And we mentioned LinkedIn and Facebook and Amazon, all these high-tech companies, they're onto this right now, right? They know that who's connected to who really matters. It's not just them. Amazon knows which book you're going to buy, because if you're this blue dot and your friends are, and you've bought these books, let's say, right? And your friend, you have a friend that you don't know. It's that friend. It could be anybody in the Amazon world, right? It's some other person has bought the same books as you have, as well as these ones. Then they can start recommending these other books to you. Okay? The notion of centrality really matters. That's how Amazon would sell you another book. In the real world, the CIA uses this to hunt the terrorists. The bad guys matter, because if you're looking at this as, let's say, one giant terrorist cell, you want to know what the impact is of eliminating this node versus this person over here. It could be that the impact on the terrorist cell is much greater if this person never talks to this person other than through this person. This person is much more important to eliminating the threat than these outside players here. Right? And if you start to think about your call detail records, again, not just as something that you use for billing, but as something that is drawing this graph for you. I mean, if you have 10,000 customers, do you know how well connected they are? Do you know if the people that are, let's say you're on the blue network, do you know if the people who are more connected to the red network than these people, are they the ones leaving? Who's doing the landline substitution? Who's dropping their landline just for wireless only? Are they these people that are not very central to your network, or are they these people who already have friends on the opposing network who are saying, hey, come on over and join? All of that is just begging to be discovered in the same boring old call detail records that you're using today for billing, probably, and subpoenas. Right? So the whole theme, again, of this big data presentation is there's gold in them dark hills, right? We did some analysis that this has been carried over. We've replicated this a few times, and you probably, I would say probably, but you might find this the same type of thing applies here. There's some misconceptions about, just as in the movie Moneyball tells you, right? That you remember the movie Moneyball for a second. The notion was that the scouts knew best, right? Gut and intuition knew best, and along came these disturbers, so we say, who said, no, there's another way to look at it. And that led to, was it Oakland, right? They went on a nice winning streak because they started to adapt some of the stuff. So we find that all the time, right? Well, people are leaving us because they aren't using enough data, and they're going to lesser plans, or they need more data, you know, and we need to compete against the person. We need to come up. AT&T just came up with this plan that offers X dollars for X gigabytes. We need to match them, because otherwise all our customers are going to go there. Well, when you go back and you look and you find out that if you stored all your data for a while, you can go back and set up a sandbox that checks this kind of thing. In this particular case, we broke down the groups into churn and loyal. The green were the loyal. And we found that, yes, in this particular customer, people who used more data tended to be at a higher risk than people who didn't. So is there a problem with their network? Are we missing some cell sites again? Have we got cell sites that are dropping data and people are getting concerned? Are they all in that western part of the island near the university? Because that's where the drop calls are. That's a question you want to know. We tend to see kind of an interesting pattern here, right? That the number of SMS messages were higher amongst the loyal users. So you say, what's going on here? We have our loyal customers use more SMS than the people who left. Well, maybe that's a shift again towards data consumption more than the SMS. And if we've priced all our models so that we're offering SMS and we're charging for SMS, we need to be aware that that for now, that's working well with loyal customers, but the people who are churning are the ones who use less. Okay? It gets a little complicated to put this all up in the graph too, but you just might as well also add another piece of the graph here that says, who's new? My new customers that have come on in the last 90 days. What are they doing relative to my loyal and my churners? They could be, in one case in the data, we found that the new customers were way up here. They were using a ton more data. So what does that mean for the network forecasting? What are our marketing guys doing wrong? I mean, they're giving away free phones, free iPhones or something, and they're coming onto our network and we're swarming it with people that are maybe paying $20 a month for an introductory rate. And we're in trouble again. So, let's see here.
Attention.
Attention, attention.
Attention. An emergency has been reported. All occupants walk to the nearest.
Fair to assume this isn't an emergency again? It's like boy cried wolf, right? Yeah. The people who did churn were much more central to the graph. Remember that terrorist graph we showed there? So it turns out that, yeah, the people, in the limited cases we've seen, the people that are closest to the other networks tend to leave more than the people who are on the fringes. And you can identify that. You can look at your call detail records and say who's closer to my competition than not. Social count too. And in some cases we find that the count of people that have, there we go, people have more friends, maybe likely to churn more. This is one customer. We've also seen the reverse. But the point is that in your company, there's a DNA, there's a footprint of what is actually happening. Your graphs will look probably quite different, but you want to get a handle on it. And so the same thing that allows you to move away from this sort of thing for as little as $10 a month and light up some servers when you need them, you can open up this as an opportunity for you as well. Video substitution. This is a hot item. The question that we get asked a lot, or being asked by a lot of people, is does my broadband consumption, if I'm offering triple play, phone, video, and internet, and I'm getting these video disconnects. Sometimes I get full disconnects. The person's moved out of town or something. But if I'm getting just the video disconnects, what's happening? Is this a Netflix user? The answer is probably yes, by the way. But is it an over-the-top video provider? Somebody just saying, I don't need the HBO package anymore on the ESPN. I'm going offline. I'm going to get all my video, all the data I'm going to want to watch. I'm going to get over my pipe, which I'll still buy from you, by the way, because I still need the pipe. We did some research that found that in certain product lines, 90 days prior to the disconnect, yeah, there was this clear as bell distinction in prime time between 8 and 11 at night. The green bars were the people who ultimately disconnected their video. The blue bars were the people who stayed. So again, this allows you, if you have any kind of hunch about what you think is happening, it's like pause, rewind the tape, look at the data, and you come up with your answer. This particular customer had an interesting take on these findings. He said, well, I'm really glad I know this. I'm not going to fight it too much because I'm tired of dealing with all the content stuff anyway. So as long as this customer is going to stay a customer of mine, yeah, okay, I'll invest in the CapEx to get my speeds up. I'll move him up the line, right, that fair graph video. I'll start offering 50 meg service and 100 meg service, and I'll start moving him up that. Every dollar that I gain from him on the broadband is $1, is 10 cents, let's say 20 cents, I'm not going to have to negotiate with the Disneys and the NBCs and stuff, right? So I'm going to reduce, ultimately, I want to get ahead of this curve. I want to reduce my programming costs and just embrace this, okay? Now, this was a customer who had kind of a lock on a geographical area. There wasn't much competition for broadband, and that was probably pretty savvy to get ahead of this way. And again, we're not even getting into the great, we'll call the great Netflix debate, right? Which is, should Netflix be pouring all this data onto your networks in prime time anyway, without paying for it? This is the stuff that's brought Netflix and Comcast and everybody else into court. because there just don't seem to be those interconnection agreements that have existed in voice for so long. They'll come, and they are coming on a private basis. But for now, just know that if you see a spike in traffic in broadband, it's fair to say that, especially in prime time, it's fair to say that those customers are likely churn candidates for at least video disconnect. Okay? Trying to think, there's a few other things I want to say about here. We can come back to it in a second. So, hard to believe we've been going for about an hour here already, but with a few interruptions from our emergency crew. But just a few closing thoughts here. Big data does not mean for big companies, right? When you hear the IBMs and the Microsofts and the Googles all spouting about their big data, they're going to continue to spout that stuff. But really what it is a mind shift that says, yeah, I should be recording everything. I want ready access to it for, say, low-level things, at least like subpoena requests. But ultimately, the more I store and the more data I can turn up, and let's see how our little job is doing, the better off I'll be. So it says running, pending. At least a couple of them completed while we were talking. Okay, so, and all those things are just slices of the data that we used to put on this kind of drive. Right? And it really opens up, go back to my closing thoughts here. I need the screen to remind me what my closing thoughts are. It really goes back to reducing the cost of failure. Okay, you don't have to, if you have an idea about what's causing churn in your company, and we don't pretend to know exactly what would be causing churn in each of your customers or what have you, but if you have an idea about it, then get away from these disk drives, start storing the data, and start experimenting. And I like to say that this really does reduce the cost of failure. And let's face it, if you have an idea, at least like the Moneyball idea again, right? 7 times out of 10, you strike out. So you might as well reduce the cost of those 7 out of 10 and get up and back more often. And we found that this has really helped us to do that. Okay. So to take some questions, we're going to be around tomorrow. Larry, Ryan, and I are going to be at booth. It's 49, right? Love to meet some of you. Physically, we have business cards, and we're all on LinkedIn at this point. We'd love to stay in touch. You send me an invite, I'd happily accept it. And any questions?